Chapter 5. Fear of Flying. Journal entry. Monday, March 24th, 2035, downtown Seattle, 12:45 p.m. The sound of a soft breeze filled my mind, and I imagined sitting atop Turtle Mountain Preserve near my home in Deer Harbor. I fantasize about the hike up to the top during the summer months when we weren't inundated by rain. I let the warm breeze of a summer day roll over me like an invisible blanket. The view was spectacular, and I could see the import-export ships cruising in and out of port. I could hear seagulls uttering caws back and forth, and a sense of safety was washing over me. The breeze I was hearing began to pick up speed, and the sound of seagulls slowly morphed into car horns and screams. The landscape switched to me standing at the top of a tall building. The wind became cold, and the pleasantries of the experience began to wane. Faster and faster the wind rushed by, getting colder and more violent. More screams, something breaking, a loud rapping against metal, sirens, anger, fear, despair. Then silence. The darkness peeled back and gave way to blistering light as my eyes seared with pain and struggled to open. All at once, my other senses came to attention, and I jumped off the couch, not fully aware of who, what, or where I was. The screams, horns, and cold wind had not dissolved away with the dream. They were real and even more acute with my consciousness fully realized. My chest was heaving as I strained to catch my breath. My mind danced in fire to put the pieces of what was happening together. The puzzle slowly came together as a flash of something entered my brain. It was a face, a woman's face.
A name goes with this face. Laura. No, Lisa.
Right. Lisa. Dr. Lisa Karington. Yes! The moment that synaptic connection took hold in my brain, a rush of energy hit me, nearly knocking me back down on the bag of beans. At once I remembered who I was, where I was, and what I was doing here. I had just come out of a hypnotherapy session. But where was this cacophony of noise and wind coming from? As I looked up, I noticed the large office window was shattered. It took me a second to process this. The complete absurdity of that possibility forced my mind to overlook the fact that there was now a gaping hole in the room and thrashing wind violating what was supposed to be a safe and serene, happy hippie atmosphere. Why in the hell is the window busted? Furthermore, where the hell is Dr. Karington? I thought as I scanned the room quickly. More screams percolated from the broken window, and the sound of sirens was drawing closer and closer.
What the hell's going on?
I said through a string of coughs. Just then, I realized the window wasn't the only thing damaged. The office looked as if a bomb had gone off.
Had a bomb gone off?
That may very well have been the case in this day and age. Was the building under attack? I could not comprehend a single thing at this moment. Along with the mist of confusion swirling in my head was a physical mist hovering heavy in the room. It was a strange red-pink hue accompanied by a familiar odor. Sulfur. I had on occasion smelled sulfur when waking from my episodes. Usually the smell was faint and seemed to dissipate rapidly. This stench seemed more pervasive, as if it wanted to be noticed. I made my way to the window in hopes of viewing something that would ease my paranoia. What I saw instead only generated unfathomable agony. The window was probably around 3 inches thick, and I doubted I could break a pane even by throwing a brick at it. The crackle of broken shards of glass snapped under my feet as I slowly scampered toward the edge. I hesitated at the thought that whatever force caused this must have been substantial. As I got near the ledge, I was being hugged by a compression of air streaming in. My poor excuse for a hairstyle was further punished by the wind's intensity, now violating this office space. It was difficult to see below as my eyes constantly teared up from the excessive wind.
The sound was eerie, like a disembodied spirit,
screaming as it rushed in. As I squinted and lowered myself, a dreadful scene began to unfold. Was that a body? Fear ravaged my heart as I considered the thought that this might be Dr. Karington's body. I felt like a vacuum had just suctioned the sound out of my mind. Everything got quiet in my head. I nearly fainted and became the building's second victim, but instead fell only to my knees. Emergency vehicles began to swell around the already billowing crowd below as I stared in disbelief. I sat there for a moment, trying to convince my brain of what my eyes already knew. A knocking at the door grabbed my attention. It was difficult to hear anything behind me, but I thought I heard the faint sound of someone asking for Dr. Karington, followed by a string of unintelligible words. I stammered back toward the door, half wanting to hear better the words from beyond it, and half wanting to distance myself from the nightmare scene on the street below.
Dr. Karington,
Commanded the voice over and over, accompanied with increasingly desperate knocks.
Dr. Karington.
They're going to think I did it, I thought. It was only her and I in this office, and now she's dead. And there's a window broken by a body that allegedly went through it. Did I do it? The thought of this possibility made the lunch in my stomach stir precariously. The tape, the recording, she recorded our session, I said as I bounded toward the table near the beanbag couch. I found the recorder on the floor, still recording. I snatched it up and shoved it in my pocket. That's when I heard a voice that was not my own. "Nathan, listen to me," the voice commanded. I turned to see who was behind me. There was no one there. I accepted the fact that my mind might very well be playing tricks on me, especially considering the circumstances. "Nathan, I know you can hear me. Do not be afraid." This time I knew I wasn't hearing things. I turned once again to see who else was in the room with me. My heart began racing beyond what it was designed to facilitate. Again, no one was there. What the hell is going on? I said to myself. Perhaps I had killed Dr. Karington and thrown her through the window. Maybe I was severely schizophrenic. That would explain the paranoia and this strange voice I heard in my head. The voice even sounded like me, but I knew it was not my own thought. "You need to flee." Finally indulging the voice, whether it belonged to me or not, I responded, "Where the hell am I going to go?" "Get out of the building and get to your car. I will instruct you from there." Okay, I'm not crazy. I just heard that, I said, pacing back and forth near the beanbag couch. The temperature in the office was now bitterly cold, and I could see my breath in the form of vapor as I exhaled. I was terrified of what lay beyond the door outside of Dr. Karington's office, yet I knew I needed to get out of here. I decided I was leaving on my own volition, and that I wasn't leaving because a phantom voice inside my head had told me to, and therefore I was not crazy. I opened the door to the office and gasped in surprise. The receptionist, Nancy, was standing there with a balled fist, ready to knock on the door. We both stood there for a moment, staring at each other. Her lips parted, about to say something, but neither of us found words to inquire of one another.
"What's happening in there?"
She finally said, trying to peer around me into the room. I... Then a thought climbed its way up to the surface above all other thought.
Run, you idiot.
So I did. Down the hall I ran. I exited through the patient waiting area and walked with urgency to the elevator. Employees began coming out of the offices and meandered about, not entirely sure what they should do or where they should go. Then a fire alarm was pulled, and I heard what I believed to be Nancy let out a horrid scream. But thankfully, it was mostly eclipsed by the wailing of the building's alarm system in a piercing series of beeps. White emergency flashes of light blinked up and down the corridor, and my heart seemed to pulse in tune. I understood that alarms were necessary to get people out of a threatening situation, but this alarm seemed to create its own atmosphere of chaos, which seemed to contrast the desired effect. White-collar employees of every shape and kind streamed into the hallway and headed toward me, toward the elevator. If this were a university study on human behavior, one could see clearly the threads that make up the fabric of human nature. Some pushed, some yelled, and others allowed themselves to be victims as they all raced toward me. Shaking uncontrollably, I reached for the lobby button. The elevator doors opened, unoccupied. I went into that elevator and let the doors close behind me, while screams of the most profane nature yelled after me. I found myself alone in this massive elevator, large enough for perhaps 20 people. I was relieved, at least for the moment. My relief was quickly subsidized by the intense fear of the voice that now haunted my mind.
Good. Do not hesitate. When you get to the bottom floor, walk directly out into your car. If you encounter any problems, I will instruct you.
That was way too specific to be dismissed as simply my own thoughts.
Oh man, I am going crazy, aren't I?